Hello! Today we're going to be talking about metabolic adaptation. It's like a voodoo word for people when they want to scare people into not losing weight, and it's quite a common excuse used by people who really don't know what they're doing. And like yo-yo diet is always complaining about metabolic adaptation and stuff like that. So I'm going to show you what it is, show you why you don't really need to worry about it, and what is actually happening instead. So, metabolic adaptation is the collected adaptations that reduce energy expenditure beyond what is predicted through diet alone. So if you lost 10 kilos, for example, and that would, let's theoretically say that 10% of your daily energy expenditure would be reduced. Your calorie maintenance would reduce by 10%. Metabolic adaptation is where we would actually see a 15, 20, 25% reduction. Okay, that's on your basal metabolic rate. So, on average, when you lose 10% of your body weight, so you go from 100 kilos to 90 kilos, for example, you'll see a difference in 20 to 25% of energy expenditure, right? When only 10 to 15% of that can be explained by the drop in weight. So that drop in weight, obviously, every step you take now, you burn less calories because you're having to lug less weight around. Plus, you're not having to keep that body fat, even though it is inert, it still does burn calories to hold it and to maintain it. So you're not burning that as well. So your basal metabolic rate drops. But we're seeing this 10% difference now between what we're actually seeing with that energy expenditure and what we can explain through the drop purely in weight. That is what metabolic adaptation is. And it happens for everybody, all right, if we're not careful. There are ways we can go about it, and I'll show you through that. So basically what happens is say your 70 kilos is your maintenance, and say that maintenance is 2,600 I've put here. Okay, so then you drop 7 kilos, so you drop 10%, and now your predicted calories is 2,300, but the actual calories, the actual maintenance calories is now 2,000. Okay, they're basically, I've used them purely so you can actually see the differences. Whether those are correct or not is way beyond sort of the realms of prediction from what I can do without knowing anything. Okay, so we would expect this just with the drop, but we actually see this, and this gap here is the metabolic adaptation. Okay, so the reason it happens can be, so these aren't always the case, everybody's completely different. And this is some of the reasons that you might see it. So you've got a decreased sympathetic nervous system activity. Okay. You've got a reduction in production of metabolic hormones, mainly leptin. All right, so you're not going to produce as much leptin because you don't have as much fat tissue. Leptin is stored in fat. Leptin is also our fullness hormone, and your fullness hormone, obviously, we want to produce lots of it. So when we lose weight and now reduce leptin, we see an increase in hunger, and that's why we get hungry when we lose weight. And there's also a shift in sex hormones. So as you lose body fat, testosterone comes down, estrogen comes down, things like that. Okay, but the main reason is because of NEAT, right? Non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Third time looking. All right. So this is the amount of movement that you do that doesn't include exercise or scheduled exercise. Okay, it makes up the biggest proportion of your energy expenditure within a day. Okay, so you have your resting metabolic rate at 50% here. Your thermoeffective food could be anywhere up to 5 to 15%. So what that is, it's basically how much energy you burn turning the food that you eat into whatever you turn it into. Then you have exercise at the top, which is 5 to 10%, and then non-exercise activity thermogenesis is basically 20 to 25, but you can increase that by quite a distance. Okay, so what happens when we start losing weight is we reduce NEAT. The number of steps that we have go down. We reduce the amount of fidgeting that happens, so you're not as gesticular. So when I go into a diet phase and I'm doing the videos, you won't see all this. You'll just see me stood here like this and drawn out and whatnot. You increase sedentary behaviours. So you're more likely to sit down rather than stand up. You're more likely to do less fidgeting, less dancing, less spontaneity when it comes to actual movement, and you're less likely and less inclined to go for a walk. Okay, and you have an improved work efficiency. All right, you've lost body fat. Body fat is an innate structure, so now that we're not having to keep that structure alive and metabolizing it, the amount of calories that you burn isn't going to be as high because we're used to keeping the muscle alive, and that's what we want to do. All right, and like I said earlier, every step you take, you're reducing the amount of calories it takes to take that step. All right. So, what does it actually mean? Right, your calories will have to come down probably more than you think. All right, so when you make a reduction, we'll probably have to reduce it by more because we've got the whole concept of dieting and fat loss. We eat less food, so we burn less calories. So your thermoeffective food, so this starts becoming lower, so your thermoeffective food. You move less, so that means that your non-exercise activity thermogenesis reduces. All right, and you're also less likely to put as much work in when you train, so your strength will probably diminish, especially on a long diet phase. Your strength will probably diminish. So I remember when I did a really harsh prep, I think I lost 10 kilos in 10 weeks. I went from squatting 150 to squatting like 80, I think. My strength went down, so the amount of calories that I was burning through a training session was less, and it's not much. Like, I think exercise probably makes up 5 to 10% of it, but I was still burning less calories. I was moving less, and this is why it's really important to always have like your steps tracked in some capacity, or even if you're like, obviously I take Odin for 2 walks a day, so I'll take him for 30 minutes at a time, and then when it comes to me wanting to improve and increase the amount of steps I need to do to offset some of this metabolic adaptation, I might say, okay, well, I'm going to take him on the longer loop for 40 minutes a day, or I'm going to take him on the field and I'm going to make sure I'm walking around for 40 minutes, okay, because I don't track my steps. And then you have a reduction in thyroid hormone as well, all right, and this isn't you have a thyroid issue or anything like that, it's just part and parcel of what dieting does, and it reduces the amount of energy you expend. Simple. Okay, so how we offset that is pretty easy. All right, so you've got when you're dieting and when you're wanting to lose weight, we can always accelerate things by doing 3 different things. Okay, we can change our step target, so we change our non-exercise activity thermogenesis. First time I got that right today. So we can increase that from 10,000 to 12,000 or 6,000 to 8,000 or whatever it might be. So we're offsetting some of the metabolic adaptation from that, because you're more likely to not do that. Your body will just try to avoid doing that. Then we can increase cardio. So cardio is very effective at just burning calories. It's not great for fat loss, but it's really good at offsetting some of this metabolic adaptation. It also has we have an issue with that long term, is because obviously you get fitter. So we sort of double down on we become more efficient at burning these calories. And then you can reduce your calorie intake. So we can change your NEAT, we can increase your cardio, and we can decrease your calorie intake. Then you have the other one, which is more of a long-term thing of we build more muscle mass. The more muscle mass you have, the higher your BMI will be, and the more calories you'll be able to burn. More calories you'll be able to eat, and more calories you'll be able to sustain whilst dieting. It's not, metabolic adaptation isn't something that you want to be really concerning yourself with, because there's always a way to do it. It's just people don't give it enough time typically. Okay, if you do have any issues, please don't hesitate to reach out. Like, subscribe, hit me down below with any questions. If you want help losing body fat this year, there is a link in the description for you to hit me up with my lifelong fat loss ebook. You can get on that and you'll have everything you need, every tool in the toolbox to help you do that. Okay, have a great weekend. Give me a shout if you need me, and I'll catch up with you soon. Goodbye.